Good morning. I met her when she was 14. She had been in 5 foster homes in 5 years. To me, that sounded like so many, too many. Her biological parents' rights had been terminated, and my husband and I adopted her. She is our daughter, and her name is Sharon. I met her when she was 21. She had already aged out. She was pregnant and completely alone. She had been in 14 placements in just 2 years. To me, that sounded like a disaster, a state of emergency. Her name is Shantae. Sharon is now grown and married and the mother of our 3 beautiful granddaughters. We spent just 6 short years together under one roof, where we immediately began our journey as complete strangers, learning to be family. As my husband and I navigated her trauma, and as Sharon navigated our all too frequent reactions, rather than trauma-informed responses, sometimes that journey felt like an eternity. However, as we gradually learned to trust and love one another, the journey felt like an unforgettable, miraculous moment in time that passed by way too quickly. Shantae was already grown when I met her, about to be a mother herself. I felt like I met her too late. Why couldn't I have met her sooner when she was a teenager like my daughter? I felt like I met her too late. However, as my story unfolds today, you're going to hear that because of the open table, it was in fact not too late. Shantae is now my daughter, not legally, but she is and always will be my daughter. It was 2016, and I was the volunteer manager for UMFS, a private provider in Virginia serving high-risk children and families. My office phone rang one day, and it was Rochelle, our program manager for our Systems of Care grant, and she said, "Angie, I just learned about this open table model, and we have to do this. I need you to get me volunteers, faith communities, civic organizations, businesses, anyone who will listen to this amazing new way to engage the community with our kids and families." Rochelle had been looking at the data for our families receiving intensive care coordination through high-fidelity wraparound, and all of the outcomes looked really great. All except for one: natural supports. Rochelle had been scratching her head at this and even losing sleep over it, and wondering how it was that we could improve this measure, this one crucial measure that is absolutely vital for reducing recidivism in services. Upon learning about the open table, Rochelle knew that this could be the answer for our kids and families. Kids at risk of aging out of foster care, and families at risk of their children entering out-of-home placement. And so the journey began, a journey with UMFS to bring Open Table to Virginia, a journey with the community to form our first 5 pioneer tables, a journey that led me to serve on a table myself, the journey that helped me to realize it wasn't too late. It was okay that I had not met Shantae sooner. Today, Shantae is also my daughter. Nationally, we know that more than 23,000 youth age out of the foster care system each year, and that they are the highest risk population for poverty, unemployment, incarceration, and homelessness. So we have to be asking, how is it that our communities can redefine a new kind of kinship that is accessible to youth after aging out? We also know that backgrounds of complex trauma contribute to significant developmental delays, and therefore most foster youth upon aging out are not equipped for self-sufficiency. Until we recognize that our communities can be that village needed by our youth aging out, we will not see sustainable change. Open Table began as a group mentoring movement in the faith community and has now expanded to be a licensed and trained model that is in partnership with all community sectors. Based on evidence-informed principles like high-fidelity wraparound, Open Table gives communities a way to form these local villages that we call tables, to journey with people experiencing economic poverty or relational poverty through long-term, sustained relationships. Table members commit to 1-hour weekly meetings for a year, but that is also interspersed with intentional opportunities for relationship building and simply hanging out. Table members volunteer for roles around the table such as transportation and insurance, housing, education, occupation, healthcare, etc. But who is at the table? Anyone can do it. It's very important to note that table members are simply generalists willing to offer support. They are not experts or even professionals in their role at the table. Think about your own life. Each of us could tell a story of at least one person who's had a major impact on us. And because of that person, they have helped to form who we are today. Open Table creates a space for just that. On our table, it was a teacher that served as the transportation chair. It was a grocery store manager that served as the housing chair. And it was a youth minister that served as the finance chair. Anyone in our communities can do it. The young person sets their own goals and they prioritize them. And they are the leader of their table. With our first 5 pioneer tables in Virginia, we had goals such as this. One young woman, simply for the first time, wanted to avoid hospitalization in a psychiatric unit during the holidays, something that had been her reality for the last decade of her life since entering foster care. Another young man, his primary goal was to escape homelessness as his 18th birthday was about to arrive and his foster mother had tragically and unexpectedly just passed away. 2 young women who were about to be single moms, Shantae being one of them, named as their primary goal that they wanted to learn to be a good mom, something that they felt like had not been modeled for them. And finally, another young woman, mother of 3, her goal was reunification with her oldest daughter, who was not currently living at home with her. And so, similar to my experience as a foster adoptive parent, our table immediately began the journey as complete strangers, committing to spending time with Shantae once a week. And as we gradually learned to trust and love one another, we became like family. And now, almost 2 months later, I have a new daughter and a new granddaughter. Early on in our experience with Shantae, we invited her over to our house for an extended family meal. That night at dinner, my niece accidentally spilt her drink on herself. And we all laughed it off with her and teased, and my sister quickly scooped her up and took her to get a clean change of clothes. And we thought nothing of it. And that night, as my husband and I drove Shantae home, she said this. She said, "It was so exciting for me to be with a family where everyone gets along and genuinely enjoys being together." But then she said this. She said, "And when your niece spilt her drink on herself, I couldn't believe that no one yelled at her and no one slapped her." As I held back my tears, it was at that moment for the first time that I realized our journey in relationship with Shantae was by far the most important piece of being on a table with her. Just last month, as we prepared for another large extended family gathering, Shantae commented that she was beyond excited to spend the day. She said, "I'm also so thrilled that my daughter is going to grow up surrounded by all of these people who love her. It's something that I didn't experience, and I'm so thankful that she is going to have a different experience than I had." Dr. Bruce Perry tells us that relational poverty is by far more devastating than economic poverty. And relational poverty is exactly what we know it sounds like, the lack of deep connectedness to other human beings that is vital for our ability to thrive, survive, and do well. In Open Table, 95% of individuals and families who work with a table across the country are still in relationship with one or more of their table members 2 years later. In Virginia, we saw 2 infants that did not enter emergency foster care when their single mothers were hospitalized for an extended period of time because their table was there, being their village and redefining kinship. Transportation goals were met. Sustainable housing goals were met. Education and occupation goals are in progress. Attachment goals were met. Reunification goals were met. But I want to emphasize that the one measure, the one that Rochelle was so concerned about, called natural supports, one that Open Table simply calls sustained long-term relationship. That is the foundation of it all, and that is the outcome that matters most. Open Table gives communities a way to move from transactional responses to poverty to transformational relationship-based solutions. In other words, it gives us a way to do more than just give our stuff, our food, our clothes, shelter, to move to a way to give of ourselves. And while most people volunteer to be on a table at first because they want to help another person, they quickly realize that their own lives are transformed because of the reciprocal relationships that they create. And Open Table gives space for just that, mutual relationship, a shared purpose, friendship, transformation, given by each other and for each other. I look forward to the future as I get to watch Sharon and Shantae on their journeys together as mothers, sharing motherly advice. It warms my heart when I hear my youngest daughter, Leona, refer to Shantae as her new big sister. And just last week, my sister was sharing with me that Shantae was going to be coming over to her house to help my older niece get ready for homecoming. And as she articulated to me how excited my niece was that Shantae was going to help her get ready for her special night, she unexpectedly started to cry. And she said, "I know it is good for Shantae that she has us, but it is even better for us that we have Shantae." A young woman in Virginia was sharing with a large group of community leaders about her experience being on a table. And she said at first she was extremely hesitant to be a part of this group with 8 strangers that she didn't know and she absolutely did not trust. And she said, "But now I need to tell you that they are my people." She said, "I've never had people before. They're my people." She said, "I would tell anyone aging out that they should do this because when I look back, I wonder how my life would be different if my mom had had a table." She said, "I think if my mom had had a table, I would not have ended up in foster care." A local community foundation recently shared the results of a survey that they did where they asked community members to think about one of their greatest challenges and to reflect on whether or not their challenge was most effectively solved within their own community or outside of the community. Overwhelmingly, the respondents said, "My story shows that my greatest challenge was best solved within my own community." My friends, we have searched far and deep and wide and long for the solution to best support our youth aging out. And I'm here to tell you today that when we open our own front door into our neighborhoods and into our communities, that is the answer. Our communities can redefine kinship and be the village for our youth aging out. Thank you.
I'm gonna make this